Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Starseed Chats. I just took a little bit of a break, and we are back now on Wednesday evenings. Today, I have a special guest here with me. We're going to be talking about our cosmic origins, and we're also going to talk about the Akashic records, digging into that. So those are topics I'm very excited about. And before we get started, if you are interested in CBD, I partnered with Hopewell Farms CBD, and you can get 10% off with Lily 10, link in the description. It helps me with meditation. It helps relieve anxiety. It helps with so many things. And also, I just released the Deep Chakra Healing with Inner Earth Beings, where I do a whole, it's a recorded, edited, whole Reiki session going through each and every chakra with the Inner Earth Beings. It's very powerful. So you can get a copy of that in the description. And without further ado, hello, Vanessa. Welcome.
Hello. So happy to be on.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we do very similar things. And Vanessa also has a YouTube channel and a TikTok account where she shares some information, messages from the Pleiadians and things like that. So I'm super excited to chat with you today.
Same. I'm glad we can finally do this. We've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah, it's been a while coming. So starting off, can you tell us a little bit about, so now you do readings, you have a channel, you speak with the Pleiadians and channel messages from them and other beings. How did you get started into that? What's kind of like your background?
Right. Well, I think like a lot of us working psychics, we all kind of started, when we were really young. Maybe we saw spirits and things like that, or had experiences. So I'm just the same. I started seeing and talking to spirits when I was about I remember being like 4 or 5, and it really freaked my mom out. And she told me I was talking to demons, so I shut it out for a while. And then around 13 or 14, whenever I started relaxing, my guides would come in really strong, and just kind of tell me things or give me impressions. It wasn't quite as clear. I have a more conversational relationship with them now, but it was impressions, words. If I wasn't very nice to my brother, when I relaxed, they would come and correct me. And then I just started, I channeled for the first time ever when I was 20, I want to say. I was doing a Dia de los Muertos party with my girlfriends. We're all drinking a bunch of wine. One of my girlfriends who's Hispanic wanted to throw this party, and so she had all these pictures and an altar and that sort of thing, and so we're all just celebrating with her. And all of a sudden she's talking about her grandmother, and all of a sudden she was saying things, and I could hear her passed away grandmother responding back. And I was like, guys, every time you say something, your grandma's responding back. I can hear her. And so then I went and I spoke for her grandmother to her. And then I just went around the room and I talked to everyone's relatives, and I'd never done it before, but I just suddenly was able to. It was wild.
That's incredible. I found, what happened with me, I'm very vision heavy. The first time that I received visions, I wasn't expecting it. I was at a small group meditation circle, and just suddenly all of these visions came pouring in, and it was so realistic. What I've heard and what resonates with me is the first time that you experience your psychic gift, it comes in very strong and very suddenly. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it can definitely be a full activation, what you experienced. It's you suddenly your energy just clicks kind of, and you just become in a vibrational resonance for the information. And yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I like to focus on developing your gifts on my channel because I didn't have any of these gifts 2 years ago. I've been practicing since then.
Wow.
But some people, they develop them earlier than others. But I want to teach people that this is something that you can develop for yourself. So I really liked how you said you started off hearing or feeling little nudges and impressions. That's so key because it can be very subtle at first, but then as you go in and you kind of work it out like a muscle, it grows stronger.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny, my channel, I feel like I'm always giving psychic tips and stuff, especially on TikTok. And now I run a psychic mentorship program. I'm actually in my 4th doing my 4th level 1 class in April.
Wow.
I also teach a level 2 and a level 3. I'm doing a level 2/3 right now. And honestly, I think that certain people are born with a vibrational resonance just based on like your DNA, where say this is like the spirit world. I think some people are born closer to it just in their natural vibrational resonance, but I honestly think that anyone through meditation and practice can start to learn how to consciously raise your vibration up enough to be able to experience psychic phenomena, you know.
Mhm.
So,
Right. Especially with all the activations and the DNA activation that's happening on Earth right now. Those gifts are all within you dormant. Is I do believe that some people are better able, to hear that, or certain gifts may come through stronger. But you have so many gifts in your Akashic records that you can begin to tap into as you activate your DNA and raise your consciousness.
yeah, totally.
Beautiful. So that is really cool that happened. You're at like a party and suddenly grandma's coming through and you're channeling.
That was wild. That was the first like unexpected thing. And then it was actually a year before that. In college, I started meditating all the time. And it was a year before that I met my spirit guide.
Awesome. Who's your spirit guide, if you don't mind me asking?
Her name is Reina, and she's a 5th dimensional Pleiadian being from the planet Era off the Taygeta star. If I could tell you the story of how I met her, I love to share it. My TikTok's probably like sick of it at this point, but it means a lot to me. So I was meditating. My guides started coming in, like I said, really strong at like 14, 15, 16. And so I started meditating because I started trying to hear them better. Because like we were saying earlier, it sometimes comes on really subtle. And through like practice and meditation, you can start really hearing them. So it was about, I meditated like straight for a whole year. And my guides would talk to me all the time. I'd be in class, they'd be like chattering to me about like people around me. And one day they were talking to me in class and I kept being like, who are you? Like, who are you? Like, if you're going to talk to me about people, who are you? And they wouldn't answer me. So after about a year of that, I was like so frustrated. I get home from class. I'm like, guys, I'm going to sit here and meditate until you introduce yourselves. And I'm just going to meditate as long as I need to, right? So I get on my bed and I meditated for, I think it was like 45 minutes to an hour, which is, as someone who meditates, that's quite a long time to meditate usually in a sitting. And so I was meditating and I got into a very deep state. And then all of a sudden, I was not on my bed anymore. I was standing with my eyes open in a really bright, huge room. And it was so bright. And it was a quick moment before I could even think anything. This 6-foot-tall blonde woman with blonde hair down to like here-ish, straight blonde hair, walks up to me, and I could just feel telepathically her warmth, her love for me. She smiled at me. It was like she was sending me her vibration. And she goes, "Hi, I'm Reina," and puts her hand out for me to shake. And this whole thing was like a 3-moment interaction. I was like, this isn't my bedroom. And then I saw Reina and she's like, "Hi, I'm Reina." And she put her hand out for me to shake. And I was so surprised that I jumped back from her because I was like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And I was back on my bed. And yeah.
So do you feel like, was that kind of like an astral experience, or did it,
right,
like, did you sense it very strong that suddenly you weren't in your room, like your consciousness was somewhere else?
Right. No, that's such a good question. So I've learned since that Reina astrally pulled me out of my body and she pulled me onto the Pleiadian mothership.
Wow.
Yeah. And I can tell you exactly what the Pleiadian mothership looks like. It's huge. It's like you're in a huge room. The floors are a whitish color. The walls are kind of round, but it was like huge. It must be like a 40-foot ceiling. Mm-hmm. And right next to me was a little platform. And then I could see in my peripheral vision, there's actually like a park, like Central Park, like a garden in this huge, giant Pleiadian mothership.
So basically like a huge city.
Yeah.
So where is this mothership, like nearby or near?
It's in Earth's orbit.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, they've shown me visions that there are ships all up in the skies. They're just cloaked. There's so many up there.
Right. I've seen your footage too, honestly. Like, it's so cool that they present themselves to you like that. And I think it has to do with you're vibrationally resonant with them. And so they know to appear to you as part of like your mission, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it started off being that's how it started off. I started seeing the physical UFOs and making contact that way. And then the psychic abilities began to develop. And then I started meditating to see them, with my third eye and interact with them in other ways. But yeah, it's pretty cool how everybody's missions are just kind of starting to come online suddenly. And we're just making so much progress. And I received a message from them the other day, actually, that the contacts are really about to pick up. So that's exciting.
Oh, I actually fully agree. I think I've heard similar things from Raina. You know what's funny too, how you said you just kind of started 2 years ago? That's when my spirit guides really pushed me to start my psychic readings business. So I've been doing it for about 2 years as well.
Wow, that's amazing. And I remember, so I saw you on Order of Light a while ago. I just thought of this. I wanted to ask you about. So there was a period earlier in your life where, and then we'll get into kind of the galactic origins and Akash, but there was a period earlier in your life where you kind of went through some, like kind of like a rock bottom or went through some crap, right? Was it as your spirituality was developing, or can you tell us a little bit that? Was there kind of like a downfall before all of this happened?
Yeah, definitely. I did go through some crazy stuff. Like I was raised by a single dad and that sort of thing. My mom was super Christian and didn't really accept my psychicness. And so I kind of really pushed it away for quite a while and I just tried to like deny it. And it was until like they just started trickling in when I was like 14, 15. I left my church because I was like, honestly, I don't think I'm wrong. I think you guys are wrong, to be honest, because I wouldn't think that like demons would be telling me how like I'd be not nice to my brother, and then they'd be like, you need to have more love and see from his perspective, and he's going through his own stuff, and I'd be like, I don't think demons would do that, So
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. And I hear that from a lot of people too. They had these things whenever they're younger and then they kind of shut it off, but it's possible to get it back.
Oh, 100%. I think you just honestly have to be open to it. And again, how you were talking about like we're all kind of activating lately. I tell everyone out there, you can ask to be activated. You can go through activation meditations. I do see that you do a few, which honestly they're so helpful. And because we're like a free will group of beings, if you ask for it, that's how you'll get these activations. If you want help from your guides, ask them, because they're not necessarily going to do it for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Asking and setting the intention is step one. Like I got some physical proof with this when I heard about, okay, you just have to ask, because we do have free will. And, they can't, our guides and these other beings, they can't always, like, they can't automatically just jump in. So you have to ask. And I was out recording sunset, trying to make contact with them. And I was going through a lot at the time. I just started like talking while I'm recording sunset. And I'm like, I ask you guys, I ask just, come and help me on my journey and tell me what I'm supposed to do. Like I'm asking, I'm giving permission for you guys to help in my life for, the highest good, my highest good. And whenever I played back that footage a couple days later, there were golden orbs that shot out from the sunset towards the camera, like immediately after I asked. It's like they were like right there whenever I asked.
Wow. Amazing. That's so cool that you can capture that. I love it, honestly. I've never actually tried to capture much. I see orbs sometimes in my videos I record on TikTok, or rather like people point them out to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so cool, honestly.
Yeah, thank you. It was just awesome to also see like some physical, like all you got to do is ask. And like you said, on Sundays, every Sunday I do activations to help, activate people. So people should be doing those every week. Just saying.
Agreed.
Yeah. So with the Akashic records, so you started off kind of like medium. you
Yeah, so I started off being, honestly, I consider myself primarily a psychic because I can talk to spirit guides, and I do the Akashic records mostly. I do mediumship as well, but it's all my gifts. I use them all, and I'm sure every psychic out there, it's not like you're just using one Claire. I just kind of use them all. So in my sessions, I do a lot of Akashic record stuff, but I love to start up my sessions with, I just get your name and your number, I call you. I like to start them out and be like, if you don't ask anything to start, don't tell me anything about you. Let me just connect with your spirit guides and see what they want to say. So I would say my primary thing, I love to talk to people's spirit guides and just see what they have, because people usually be like, oh, I read a list of questions, and before I even ask, your spirit guide will come and answer all of them for you. So
they know what you need to know most.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, you know what? Don't even ask anything. Let's just see what they want to say. And then usually they start. And then I see past lives. I love Starseed origins. I feel like I went into the Galactic Akashic records first immediately. Like I can feel like certain energies that I recognize. Like obviously, I have my suspicions that I think you're Pleiadian because you just have Pleiadian energy to me, and as a Pleiadian starseed, I can recognize that. You have other ones too, but I just started kind of getting into like that galactic thing. But
yeah, that's awesome. I jumped right into the galactic, and I hear that some people who do Akashic readings, they just do Earth. They don't do galactic. So that's why I was so excited to find you, and you specialize in the galactic. So I wanted to ask about the Akashic records, kind of like what's kind of the story of how you started tapping into those? And is it your guides who are going in and getting the information for you, or kind of how that works? And then also I wanted to go into what are some common themes that you see in readings with other people, kind of like our cosmic origins? Do they give you kind of like a timeline? That's kind of a really loaded question already, but
No, that's great. So the way that I access the Akashic records, my guides usually show me what I need to see. So I'm really lucky to have guides that kind of are that intermediary. Although I am in the records, they're usually presenting me with that information.
Right.
I see a lot of themes where in the records you can see how many lives you've lived. So I do see that obviously the starseeds have way more lives. A lot of starseeds I pull up have Atlantean lives, for one. And a lot of starseeds I pull up are originally from Lyra, but not all of them. And then sometimes I see people have come from other galaxies or other dimensions, which is a really interesting one to see. Funny though, I don't know why this is, but if you come from another dimension, I guess, I can only see up to the point where you entered. I can't see past it. So I don't know if that dimension has its own Akashic records. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that would make sense. That's what I see a lot too. Sometimes Lemuria will come up in.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah, Lemuria will come up sometimes in my clients, and Atlantis. It's like probably everybody watching this, maybe not everybody, but a lot of the people watching this, you've lived lives in one of those.
Yeah. Oh, it's so common. And I think because of the way it fell, I think a lot of people are kind of here almost on a redemption mission to kind of right what went wrong.
Yeah.
I honestly, it seems like a lot of the trouble in Atlantis came from kind of greed and taking things kind of far and not respecting natural law and order. And also I feel like there was so many like negative forces trying to corrupt Atlantis that we're all kind of fighting that still. That's like the beginning of the page of the book, and we're kind of getting towards the end. You know what I mean?
Would you consider that being kind of like caught on like the karmic wheel with this? So we got to do it right this time, or kind of work through it this time?
I think some people are working through karma with Atlantis to kind of write it. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, I think so too. That's what I found whenever it started coming up for so many people, I'm like,
Yeah.
did we all just stay on Earth after Atlantis and Lemuria, and we're just kind of like repeating this? We're doing round 2.
Right. I also I see a lot of past lives of people processing the end of their life in Atlantis because it was so traumatic, because it wasn't just a death, it was the death of their whole society. And so I do see a lot of past lives with like tsunami waves
Yeah.
coming in.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna mention that also. There's a lot of people in the audience, not a lot of people, but a good amount of people that I talk to that have visions or dreams of tsunamis coming
Yeah.
in. And I'm like, that's from Atlantis.
Totally. 100%. That's so funny. I love that you see that too.
Yeah. So that's something that obviously it's still bothering you, your soul, your consciousness. So you got to kind of work through, or any of your energy centers. So you got to acknowledge that, process it, and then heal it, and release it.
Totally. I also love healing through the Akashic records. I never took a class on it. I just kind of had Raina, my spirit guide, guiding me. And also, just to explain about Raina, when I was Pleiadian in my last incarnation, I was Raina. So she's a higher version of me, but because time doesn't exist, I'm able to still access that version of me, if that makes sense. Which sometimes people are like, she's on her ship, she's your spirit guide. I'm like, yeah, she's both. There's a version of her at a different time that is on a ship above Earth, but there's also a version of her that is a higher self of mine that I have access to as well. So
yeah, no, I'm really glad that you mentioned that. So sometimes so you can connect with her as like a spirit guide, as if she's like can be there 24/7.
Yeah, we speak telepathically all the time. In fact, I love to do live readings where I'm like, ask Raina, and then I go and I ask her, and I do it with my students all the time.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. A lot of our guides, our spirit guides, are actually other versions of us, and a lot of these extraterrestrials that we see are actually other versions of us, just like
Yeah,
what you said.
100%. It's funny. It's not all of them, because I do have another spirit guide who is a higher Earth teacher, and because I'm here on Earth now, he's a guide to me, helping me be an Earth person.
Right.
So,
awesome. What kinds of things have you seen in your past lives, if you don't mind sharing? Like Raina was one. What else have you kind of discovered for yourself?
I originally was in Lyra on a planet called Agoria, and I was more the feline type Lyran. There were all Lyrans are humans, essentially. There's some that modified themselves to look more feline, and some that look more like what we think of Pleiadians as looking like. So I've been both in Lyra. And then I jumped around to a few different places. I had a few lives in Sirius, and I had I have a few other connections that are kind of random, and then I spent the majority of my lives in Era, and that's where I was right before I came here.
Wow.
So,
wow. Have you ever came across in your work any information about our consciousness being like we actually have other bodies besides this?
Right. So yeah. So I'm here on the Envoy program, which is a program that was specifically designed to have a bunch of people from other places come to Earth and incarnate in human bodies to kind of hold a vibration or help raise the vibration. So it's the Envoy program. I was a middle-aged, fifth dimensional Pleiadian woman on Era, and I decided to volunteer for this program. So I actually have memories of this too. I have a ton of memories of Era. I actually think I'm writing a book right now, so I'm going to put that in. But we ended up putting our bodies in stasis pods, and then our consciousness was escorted. It was a whole big plan. They picked an activated bloodline. So they activated your mom, her mom, and they ended up activating the DNA and adding more extraterrestrial DNA to make it compatible with the soul vibration going in, because, a fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional, seventh dimensional consciousness is not necessarily compatible with an Earth body. So it has to be an upgraded body. Also, you had to pick a body that has a lot of that particular DNA already in it, we've had colonies of different extraterrestrials come down and alter our genetics and mix genetics with us. So I'll give you an example. To hold a Pleiadian consciousness, you typically have to pick a body and a bloodline that has enough Pleiadian DNA to be compatible. So a lot of Scandinavian people are, you know, are Pleiadian starseeds.
I'm part
because
Scandinavian.
I'm Swedish and Finnish.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, but it's because they made a colony in Scandinavia and put a lot of their genetics, and so you had to pick a bloodline that's, because it's like soul DNA has a frequency that has to match with the body's DNA.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I was a middle-aged Pleiadian woman. I was a grandmother. I had a son. He has 2 daughters. I ended up volunteering for this program, so I put my body in stasis, and I chose to be born on Earth. And I do believe that when this mission is done, when this life is done, I'm going to go right back to that life in my family in Era.
So what time period do you think? Well, I know everything's happening like all at
Right.
once, but I'm wondering like how long ago or when did we decide to put our bodies in stasis pods and come down
So,
here?
right, from what I gather, I came from about 300 to 400 years in the future, and then because time doesn't really matter, we went back in time to this point. I've heard that the Andromedan Council, because they have a bunch of really amazing psychics, they saw the trajectory of where Earth was going, and it was going to make a ripple effect in the galaxy. So they decided to prevent this because it was kind of ruin the bad good balance. It was going to make bad go way too much, and that's not helpful to us. There is kind of a merit to both the good and the bad because they constantly push each other in a way that creates evolution. So yeah. Also, something I want to mention that's really funny is because they're like, oh yeah, the Andromedans are psychic, right? You would think that, right? Raina has expressed to me that really strong psychic abilities are not in every race, and they're not even in races that have psychic beings. There are more psychic beings than others. So a really good psychic is just as valuable in the Pleiades as it would be here.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
That is amazing. And that makes sense why some of, I don't know if you know much about like the secret space programs or kind of like those programs. People who have really strong psychic abilities, whether they know it or not, they're selected, and it's like not just humans are wowed by it, but even extraterrestrials. It's very like desirable.
Yeah, honestly, that makes so much sense, because I was like, Raina, isn't everyone psychic? And she was like, well, not necessarily. Like, they have telepathic communication between each other, but she's like, yeah, that's just standard. But people who can really, you know, go much farther than that in their psychic abilities are really kind of revered, even in the Pleiades. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And we can all develop, like, there's different gifts that I've been developing with my throat chakra and the tones that I create. And that's part of why the live activations on Sundays. And this comes from my Lyran heritage. I can create these tones that heals on a quantum level, even if I'm not singing, just with like thought or my voice. And I was like, really, my voice?
Yeah.
But
no, I totally believe that. It's vibration. Speaking of which, I know you just told me you have Lyran heritage, which I already suspected. Can I read your galactic origins?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Can I read your records?
Yeah, this is exciting.
Okay. I'm just so curious.
Let's see what comes
I had already guessed Lyran Pleiadian. That was my first, because you radiate that energy to me, and I've seen you do like Pleiadian videos and stuff, so that I already feel like that's going to be there. But we'll see. You have a lot of energies around you, so I'm curious.
Mixed bag over here.
You're Lyran originally. I actually do think I see existence before Lyra. So that means you're trans-dimensional. I believe. I believe that's what I'm seeing. You started out as kind of an elemental energy, so you still probably have a lot of Fae connection in this life. I would say. You really connect to earth spirits and things like that. Do you see fairies?
I actually, growing up, I loved fairies. I used to read books about them. I thought that they were real. And then, you start growing up and you kind of leave that stuff behind. One of my friends is really into the Fae. I started seeing fairies in meeting, like they would visit me psychically and in the astral realm. So yeah, I haven't seen one in a while, but they've taken a couple of my things too.
Oh, cool. It's in a couple of your dreams?
No, I said they've taken a couple of my things. There's a thing where they may play with you and they may kind of move things around. They've done
right. Well, you've lived your life as a Fae being at many points throughout your evolution. So you have Fae energy in your field, I guess. But wait, let's continue. You're kind of I see you loved being like a pilot and explorer. I see you going to many different places. I definitely see Atlantean lives for sure. I actually think I see you visited Mars as well and Venus.
I have seen a male version of me on Mars. I've seen him about 3 times. He's contacted me, but I don't know too much about him yet.
Yeah, the pilot guy. He likes to explore. He's like a explorer. I see him visiting Mars. You have a lot of Pleiadian lives, especially after the Lyran Wars. But it's funny. You have a lot of Syrian lives as well. Let's see.
Yeah, Syrian was the first one that, I fell in love with the Star Sirius. The UFOs are showing up. I didn't know anything about the Starseed yet, but I would look up at Sirius Star and I'm like, I know they are up there. So that was my first kind of connection, and I would just look at it for hours upon hours upon hours.
I actually feel like your energy is more Syrian than Pleiadian in the mix.
Interesting.
Even though obviously you're very Pleiadian, Syrian comes in so strong. I actually think that maybe you were Syrian before you came to this Earth mission too. I also see, and this is so funny, Andromedan connections as well.
From the Andromeda Galaxy or Andromeda constellation?
Oh, good question.
Maybe both.
Maybe both. Maybe both. You have a female Andromedan guide. She's beautiful. They have a light blue skin, no hair.
Yeah. I know. I think I know who you're talking about.
Sometimes they almost have like a gold shimmer to their skin, which I find interesting, or just their energy when they appear to me. And then I think the last big connection, you have a bunch. Alpha Centauri.
Alpha Centauri. Interesting.
You have a little bit. Let me see what the connection is there. You've had lives in Alpha Centauri as well.
I haven't. I knew everything else that you said, but that is a new one to me, the Alpha Centauri.
So they were a colony on Earth during Atlantis, and a lot of them, they were called the Solosi, and a lot of them went underground after the fall of Atlantis, and they ended up calling themselves the Terra Solosi, so the Tolosi, so they're part of the Agartha network.
Yeah.
They're Lyran descended beings. So.
Yeah, I have a pretty strong connection with Inner Earth that started coming up not too long ago in the last year.
I feel like there is a very strong connection, almost like a brother connection, to a male in Inner Earth who's contacting you.
I've seen the female 1K. That's actually who I channeled the deep chakra healing that I was just talking about in the beginning of this, that recorded Reiki session. That's who was helping me with that.
Really? I see. It's like you have, we'll call them family down there. I see some family members of yours that are communicating with you, and they're really helping you to educate people. Can I ask, they keep showing me this vision of you talking to like it's like you giving a talk, like to big groups of people. Is that what you're doing this year?
Well, I'm doing my first presentation on Monday, actually. And yeah, I am planning to go and speak at events. Whenever I first read my future in my Akashic records, that's the first thing that I saw was a red
auditorium.
Yeah, like an auditorium, these red curtains coming out, opening up, and then there was a stage. And I was like, oh.
Sorry, just talking to your Alpha Centaurian connections, they're like, we're helping her. This is the year she's doing that. So, but yeah, thank you for letting me read for you.
Yeah, that was awesome. Pretty spot on. Very well done. Very well done.
Thank you.
Okay, and accessing the Akashic records. So you said that you started off in Lyra. What do you see a lot with other people? That's funny.
Right.
That I'm thinking about the fairies too. That's funny. That you caught on to that. Yeah. What do you kind of see with other people doing your readings? Kind of some commonalities.
We have a lot of Lyran Pleiadians on Earth. And the Lyrans, when Lyra was destroyed, came to the Pleiades, became the Pleiadians. They're the same race. So I always call them Lyran Pleiadians. It's the same race. I do see a lot of Lyran Pleiadians. So a lot of people do start out in Lyra and then go to Pleiades, just because honestly, I feel like we have just the largest number of starseeds are Pleiadians. The Arcturians are not human-based, which is interesting. So they don't start out in Lyra. So if you're an Arcturian starseed, that's not part of your evolution, which I find interesting. The Andromedans in the Andromedan constellation, though, are Lyran-based, actually. And then I do see beings from all walks of life. Like one time I was reading someone's Akashic record, and they were a being that lived inside of the sun, so, or a star. So they're like a star being, which was really cool. They were like this collective consciousness, and they were just amorphous energy. And what was really cool about that life is obviously like time's different for us because they were instantly manifesting. Like I saw like a city come up and fall in like a second. Like they just instantly could manifest. And like almost like when we're dreaming, that sort of thing. That was their reality. So
yeah, that's awesome.
How about you, actually? Out of curiosity.
What was that?
How about you?
Oh, for what I see often in in my clients with the Akashic records. So I found similar, a lot of the people who are attracted to me, drawn to my energy, we have kind of like similar backgrounds. A lot of them Lyra and dealing with the Lyran wars. And unfortunately, that is a scar that we usually have to heal. There may be some leftovers from that. That was like my second spontaneous regression where I was minding my own business. It was Christmas Eve. I was doing my makeup. Suddenly my guides were like, whoosh, when Lyra was attacked. And I kind of like relived it for a second and then had to heal it. So that's a big wound, but I see that a lot. Pleiadian a lot also, sometimes Arcturian. And yeah, Atlantis and Lemuria. And let's see, so what happened for the reading that I just did earlier? The heart was something that came up. A lot of the time that will come up, the guides saying to focus on your heart, open your heart. And the throat chakra was what came up earlier from being issues with the throat chakra, from being burned as a witch in the Middle Ages. So sometimes that comes up. That happened to me also.
Wow. I have seen that a few times, actually. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And then that will something like that, being persecuted for, or killed for being a healer, having these gifts, that's why a lot of us, we hide who we truly are, or it's just we do not express our truth. So yeah, that's something that came up earlier, and that was a difficult one for me too. So the chakras are very important. A lot of the time that will come up in a reading as well. It's kind of like an Akashic, their origins, and then halfway through it goes into, okay, what do they need to know, and just like little how to steps and things like that.
Right. No, honestly, you're so right. That healing is so powerful too. And I love that we read so similarly. We do Akashic, we do it all. So I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I had an experience once. So besides being pulled out of body, because now they do it, my guides do it a lot more often. I've been pulled up on the Pleiadian mothership a few times, but I also have this Arcturian collective I work with. Even though I have no Arcturian lives, I still work with them, I guess.
Yeah, me too.
You do too? Yeah, I was going to say, I feel so much different energy around you. I'm sure you're on like boards and councils. Specifically, I want to say you work with the Andromedan Council. Strongly, honestly. But I have 3 Arcturian guides that present themselves to me sometimes. And I was complaining to my fiance, where I was like, I want to talk to them more. They're a little bit more high vibrational, so sometimes I'm not always in the space to speak with them. And then one day, after a bunch of clients, I just decided to meditate, and they pulled me out of body onto a ship. And I was more used to it at this point, but every time it happens, I'm still like, okay, this is happening. And it was 3 of them. And they were talking to me about my readings, and they kind of gave me like a talking to, being like, you're not there to socialize. You're not holding the vibration you need to. If you're being too concerned with what's going on, you're a channel, you're there to deliver messages. And I was like, okay, like Jesus. And then they put me back in my body, and I just was starting sobbing, because it's always so traumatic when I'm still not like 100% used to being pulled out of body and talking to them. So I was crying to my fiance. I was like, they pulled me out of body. I wasn't expecting it. Like, they told me I'm not doing my readings right. And he was just like, honey, didn't you tell me you wanted to talk to them? And I was like, yes, but like, it's traumatic. And it's so funny because they were so right. I stopped being as social and like maintaining my vibration. But that was the first time the Arcturians pulled me out of body. And the second time that they did it, they pulled me out onto the same ship, big ship, except the Arcturians that pulled me out, the 3 that I usually see, they're more bluish. Yeah. This time, I met an Arcturian who was taller than them, with white skin. And he looked ancient. Like, he looked like the oldest Arcturian there probably ever was. Wow. And I was like, so what's funny is a lot of people don't talk about that there's white Arcturians and blue Arcturians. So I'm like, hello, because I didn't know him. He's not part of my usual collective. And he's like, he just acknowledges me, but he doesn't say anything. And he turns, and all of a sudden, we're in this huge room, and there's the wall, like the curved wall next to us. All of a sudden, the curved wall becomes a screen, and we can see that, like a huge, like movie-size screen. And we can see the outside, like, space. And I was like, okay. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at a planet, and I see it getting attacked. And there's, like, explosions and crazy stuff. And I turned to him, and I was like, what are you showing me? And this is the only word he said to me. He's like, Lyra. And I was like, oh my God, he showed me the moment that Agoria was attacked, my home planet. And that was really crazy and profound.
Yeah, that's amazing. The Arcturians, they can be kind of just quiet and reserved, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. They're the Pleiadians are so much more chatty, but the Arcturians, the 3 usually at least speak to me. This guy was just like, look, Lyra, and that's all. He was just quiet and like stoic and a man of few words. So
yeah, so he was showing you, that was your home that happened, and maybe was helping you kind of heal that in the process.
Yeah, it was such a trip. But yeah, sorry, your story before about like having to heal that wound and see that. I literally saw it. The planets like this, and they came from from the right towards the top middle. It was a huge landmass, and then there's a little landmass on this side, but it was mostly a big landmass, kind of almost shaped like South America a little more wider on the top, a little more. And then there's a little part that looked like Australia. And then there was a little part on the side, but there's a mainland, really. It looked like it was a planet of like islands, really. Like there's a mainland and then islands. And then they ended up attacking the middle right, and it was just wild.
Wow. So how did they attack it? Did they come down there, or did they start shooting, or
they started? I just saw a fleet of ships, in succession, dark ships. I think black ships, angular, maybe triangular shaped. They're dark color at least. And I saw a little explosion, like a bomb, a little one on the planet. And then once I saw that cloud coming up, then this whole fleet of ships came in, and they were just, it was like I think they're shooting like lasers or laser beam kind of things, but there was fire and explosions, and that's all I really saw. I only saw like a snapshot of it.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's awesome. Whenever I kind of had my mini regression, it was just explosions.
Yeah.
Explosions, fire, some beings were on the ground. So the astral projecting thing, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. Whenever they take you astrally, can you kind of just tell us a little bit about that? And
sure.
And is there kind of like a tutorial, or they just kind of like they just decide whenever they're going to take you up there?
There is zero tutorial. They do all the hard work. They can just pull you out. I believe it's almost like they beam me out. So they beam me from where I am to the ship. And I don't have to do anything. You just have to be in a relaxed, receptive enough state. So if you want to ask for that experience, meditate with that intention, like we talked about earlier. While I'm on the ship, I'm in my astral body. So it's, when you look around or you're moving around and it's like a dream, or in a dream, it feels like that, although sometimes it feels a little bit more solid than that. So it's like they're changing my astral body to feel a little bit more solid. So I can walk, although I don't really walk around much. Usually they just pull me up, talk to me, and put me back. But I'm standing, I have a body. It's like they're taking my astral body and they make it feel more solid. And I'm not sure how they do that.
So whenever you're up there in your astral body, you can like you can kind of control yourself, or is it just kind of like one scene just coming through your eyes?
No. I'm up there. It's honestly, I feel like, because Raina's tried to I get impressions from Raina. My astral body's taken up there, and they must have technology to make your astral body just a little denser. So it's like I have my body up there, even though I don't. I'm in a body. And that was the craziest thing the first time it happened to me, because I was like, I literally didn't realize I was in astral. I thought I was standing in a whole different room. You feel like you're in your body. Although what I have to say is, because they're pulling me into a different vibration, so they're pulling me like onto a fifth dimensional ship, there's something about fifth dimension that is so bright. Like the colors are more vivid. It's like if you took a regular TV and compared it to like new HD TV, that's what fifth dimension looks like. It's more colors. The only thing I can liken it to is I've done my fair amount of mushrooms in my life. And when you're on mushrooms, you start to see like these like oranges and greens that you don't usually see. It's like you see more color. That's exactly what fifth dimensional reality is more like.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So whenever what's kind of like a really, really cool experience that you've had going outside of your body, or what are some things that the star beings have kind of like taught you, or any kind of like recent messages also?
What's really cool? I wanted to teach Akashic records in my class, and so I feel like I teach the class with Raina, because like I talk to her all the time. I reference her. She helps me write the course. She also like chimes in where she's like, this wouldn't be best for the student, this would. And something she told me about the Akashic records is, she said that the Akashic records they're not like a big separate thing. they're intrinsically connected to us, because everything that has life force energy gives out a certain vibrational echo, and the Akashic record stores those echoes. So everything that has life force gives off this energy that is instantly stored in the records. So we are so intrinsically part of and connected to the records, so no one should feel separate from them.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's
right?
amazing. Yeah, that's beautiful. I would just say whenever I first started dabbling in, I like taught myself. Well, my guides were helping me, but learning how
Of
to
course.
access, the Akashic records. I will mention, just in case for anybody who wants to try it, be very specific about what you want to go into. I had not a bad experience. They were teaching me a lesson where I was super excited. I'm starting to receive visions, and I'm like, I want to know about my past lives. Where have I been? What have I done? And I wasn't specific, and I didn't really see anything. But right after I started feeling weird feelings on my leg, like this tingling. And I called my spiritual friend. I'm like, what happened? I was just trying to go and see my past lives, and now I've got a weird feeling on my leg. He said to call Archangel Michael and cut any cords from any past lives. And as soon as I did that, it went away. So I know I must have accidentally tapped into a life where something bad happened with my leg. Maybe my leg was chopped off. I don't know. But I started kind of experiencing that. Have you had any kind of weird things happen like that with the Akashic records or with work?
Yes. Oh my God, so many stories. Nothing really physically has happened to me yet, but I have a million just would blow my mind all the time stories. Also, can I tell one actually?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So I was reading records for this woman, and I just get your name and your number, and I call you up. As soon as I connect her, I give her my spiel, let me just get your birthday, connect to your guides and your records. As soon as I do that, she's like, okay, I just want to let you know that I booked this pretty much because I can't find a relationship, and I just want to know why. That's the whole reason I booked this. And I was like, okay, all right, we'll start there. So I ask her spirit guides, I'm like, why can't you find a relationship? Instead of answering me, they show me an Akashic record instead, which guides, are wont to do sometimes. So I'm like, okay, they didn't really answer me, but they're showing me this record. Why don't we go through it? Mm-hmm. So it starts out in a Scandinavian country. She's a girl, and she had gone her whole life training to be a fighter, because apparently they let women and men train. And she grew up in a village that they sent her the village over to train. And so from teenage time on, she was training, and she ended up training a bunch with this guy. And by the time they're 18, 19, they decide they want to get bonded. At the time, I see this in the records, they don't have marriage in the same way we do, but it's more you're together. It's a ceremony. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But she ends up being best friends with this guy. They work together, they play together, they train together, and they have a great relationship. They're the best of friends. Then it flashes forward to about 10 years later. She's 28, 29. She finds out her mother is sick, and her mother lives the town over, and she doesn't think her mom's going to make it. Mm-hmm. So she leaves her husband there with their kids. She's like, okay, I'm going to take the day and a half walk to go see my mom. And he's like, okay, honey, don't worry, I've got this. And so she starts walking. And then about halfway after walking for 5-6 hours, there's a snowstorm, and she's not going to be able to make it over the pass. So she decides it's not safe. My mom might die, but I can't risk my life. So she ends up walking the 5-6 hours back. And at this point is where it gets crazy. She comes back to find her husband in bed with this younger brunette chick. And in her rage, she grabs one of their knives and stabs them both to death.
Oh my gosh.
And it's so funny. I was telling the woman, I'm like, okay, I'm so sorry. It started so nice. I didn't think it was going to take this turn. Yeah. And I was like, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't think it was going to get this dark. And she starts laughing. And she's like, let me tell you something. She said that she married her college sweetheart, and they started a business together. They did everything together. They were best of friends. And she said about last year, when she turned 30, she had to go on a business trip for their business. So she leads him, she goes to the airport. Her flight is like canceled or something. She calling her honey. He's not answering. So she drives home. They live like an hour from the airport, I guess, but she can't get a hold of him. She drives home. She's like, I found him in bed with our neighbor, this little brunette chick. And she's like, I don't know what happened, but I just saw red. I chased them both out of my house, barely clothed. I got in my car. I tried to run them over. And she's like, I literally fantasize about killing him all the time. And I've been single for 2 years. I haven't been able to find a relationship since.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my goodness. Just the parallels you see in the records that sometimes we have to repeat the karma and the lessons. So I ended up asking her guides, I was like, why did they show her this life? After that life, they ended up showing me that she was so regretful and remorseful. She killed the love of her life. She was devastated, and she never was with anyone ever again. And she died sad and alone. And they said that she had regretted it so much that she wanted to go through and do it again, and instead to learn love and forgiveness instead of killing him. So her guides essentially said she's not going to be able to move on until she forgives him, like to another relationship. And that's why she's been single. So.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, a lot of those repeating cycles too. I'll see that a lot.
Yeah.
That's why for a while they were, through the live activations, we were focusing very heavily on getting rid of old karma and cutting cords, because there's junk that you can be holding on to still. But yeah, that's super funny. I also wanted to ask, if you have looked into the Anunnaki or in the Akashic records, or if that ever comes up.
Yeah, a bunch. Anunnaki starseeds are pretty rare in my work. I don't know why. I don't come across them a bunch. Like them and like blue avians are about the same level of rareness for me, although I do see them. I believe the Anunnakis come from Sirius, is what I believe. And that there are different factions. I believe even in Atlantean times, I think there were different factions of like kind of good ones and bad ones, essentially just based on service to self or service to others. And I think that there are more, I believe that at some point, some Anunnakis ended up meshing genetics with reptilians. So there's like a reptilian Anunnaki group, and then there's more of a humanoid Anunnaki group, and they clash a lot, in my opinion. What do you think? Have you come across them much?
Well, I just more recently started kind of getting into it more, but I have had it come up for a reading once, the Anunnaki, and it was this man who I just saw like a bunch of kind of like scratches, violent, like haunting, paranormal stuff whenever I first went in. And so I asked him, I was like, do you have any like kind of weird paranormal things that happen? And he's like, oh, all the time he would hear tormented by these paranormal things. He's been scratched, he's been pushed. He was out camping, he'd hear steps going around the truck, all of these just really weird, terrible things. I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, like, I'm so sorry. That just sounds excruciating. And what I found out what it was, he had been an Anunnaki, and it was karma coming from the bad things that he did as an Anunnaki. So what he had to do to get rid of all of that stuff was to heal, that trauma and, heal trauma, and also just kind of like heal and clear that karma. So that's the only time that it came up. So then that's when I realized, oh, some of us could have been incarnated as Anunnaki also.
Yeah. Wow. That's so amazing that you have the abilities you do. I'm always impressed to meet other good psychics. That's so awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I always asked to see, that one actually, like, my jaw dropped whenever he was like, yeah, I do have, and he started telling me all of the weird, crazy things. My jaw dropped.
Right.
Yeah, I always just ask, whatever they need to see the most.
Yeah, same.
Do you think there are Anunnaki around now?
Embodied?
Yeah.
I don't know, actually. Let me ask Raina. She says no.
Okay.
Currently on planet Earth, although they have been here in previous times. That's what she says.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I've been feeling called to look into that more. So I feel like there's about to be like a big disclosure or something coming up with
Same.
that. Yeah.
Well, if I'll tell you what I think, I haven't even said this on my TikTok channel, but Raina's timeline for disclosure, because I was like, Raina, when am I going to see like a Pleiadian shaking hands on TV with like, you know, on a stage? When am I going to see that? Her timeline previously was, she's like, there's a lot of factors up in the air, but she thought it was going to be more like within the next 10 years, more like 27, 28. But something happened like 5 months ago where they decided and made a decision to make that timeline faster. And so honestly, I think real disclosure is coming 23, 24, like real disclosure. I think, at least, is my guess. She doesn't give me too many details, and I think it's more for like my safety, to be honest. But she will give me like impressions and stuff and what I'm allowed to know. So yeah, that's what I think. What do you think?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's awesome. I asked in the beginning, this light blue being a version of me, Talia is what her name is. If anybody's heard me talk about her before, I asked her way back in the beginning, like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when will you guys be on, when will you be on the ground with us? Like, when can I meet you face to face? And her response was 2030s, which would have been like about, 10 years. But that felt like more like comfortably, like they are on the ground, out in the open.
Right.
Yeah, the disclosure, especially after some messages that I got the other day, this year and next year and the year after are going to be really, really big for disclosure. I think it's going to pop off.
Is Talia your Andromedan Lyran guide?
Yes.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. 100%.
Yeah, that's exactly who I thought of whenever you mentioned. Yep. She's beautiful. That was the first one. That was the first ET that I ever saw, and she was with me all the time in the beginning. She taught me so much.
You know what's funny? Sometimes when I'm looking at people, I'll see their other dimensional selves, and sometimes I feel like I see her in you a little bit.
That's super funny. So there was a time where I was with her every day. She was teaching me every day. She was in my head every single day. There was one time teaching me things. Just one day it just kind of stopped. And then I asked like a little while later, like weeks later, I was like, what happened to her? Where did she go? I thought maybe she left on a mission or something. And I was in the bathtub and I look up at the reflection and I see her reflection in my reflection, like on her.
Yeah, amazing. Oh my goodness. That's so funny. Can you talk to her kind of telepathically anytime you want?
Yeah, it was very, very strong in the beginning where like she was like in my head with me like all the time. Yes, telepathic communication. Now I feel like we've kind of like integrated more and more recently the Pleiadians have been coming up more. But yeah, I can talk to her whenever.
That's so funny. Not to be invasively psychic, but I feel like the Pleiadians are more coming in to show you how to vibrationally heal other people. That's kind of their field of expertise.
Right. Yeah, I could see that definitely. That before it was very much Akashic records, developing the third eye, and then since doing the DNA activations live, it's been more about like quantum healing. So that they've been around more.
Love it.
Yeah. So I guess there was one other quick thing I wanted to ask you about. Do people ask you about twin flames, and do you see anything about that in the Akashic records? Twin flames?
Yeah. So I personally just, I don't claim to know everything. Just in my own experience, what I've thought is that there's a lot of stuff going on about twin flames that doesn't really resonate with me. I've asked Raina about twin flames, and she more explains it that it is a male and female polarization of one soul. Usually you do that to achieve a mission together. It's like your twin, your soul partner, essentially. And I do see that often. But I find for many starseeds on this envoy program, a lot of your twin partners aren't incarnated on Earth, or they're in inner Earth, is my experience. Although I do see it sometimes, but that's kind of my take.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was getting to. So I just that just kind of came over my radar recently. I've never cared about twin flames or but
yeah,
there's a lot of people who, not a lot, but a good amount of people who come to me and they want to know about their twin flame or their soulmate. And what I'm finding and what I found for myself is mine's up there.
Same. Mine is, sorry to my wonderful, lovely Earth fiance, but I have a male Pleiadian counterpart on a ship right now as well.
Same. And that doesn't mean that you can't have a loving relationship with somebody on Earth, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. I do. It's funny. How many of your clients do you pull up are Earth seeds?
I don't know if that's ever come up.
So it's funny. I have had 3 people, no, probably 4, that I pulled up, and they're only Earth lives.
Wow. Interesting.
Right? Typically,
are they still old souls? Are they still old souls?
Yeah, extremely old souls, but old for Earth, how long Earth's been around. But I feel like just maybe we don't attract that kind of energy.
Right.
Or they're just not as interested in kind of what we have going on. But typically they're older. Like I've had like my first one I ever got where she's like, I want to know what starseed I am. It was like a 55-year-old lady. And I was like, you're not a starseed. And she's like, honestly, I kind of suspected that. But she was actually like a really good psychic.
Wow.
And I was like, for anyone who wants to like say starseeds are better, they're not. They're just from a different place. Earth seeds can be just as spiritual, just as much part of this like bringing light to the planet, mission we're all on. So I always just like to make that very clear.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's awesome. And we're all starseeds in the fact that we have mixed alien genetics.
Oh yeah, we're all hybrids.
Yeah.
100%. Also, something that I also love to point out is everyone has galactic connections, because since time works backwards and forwards, you have connections to your past lives. You also have connections to your future lives. Earth's not always going to be around. So every being on this planet potentially is going to live somewhere else in the future lives. So anyone, even if you've only had all your previous lives on Earth, you have galactic family you can reach out to. It might be from the future, but it doesn't matter.
So. Yeah, that's a really great point. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like a lot of these beings are actually from the future that are coming to connect with us. So how would you, to reach out to your star family, what would you say for people to do? Like, how can they do that if they're from the future or?
Right. I would get a list of the top 12 most popular starseeds, write yourself a little list. And then I just want you to get into a deep state of meditation. And I want you to take time and go through everyone. So start with, say, Anunnaki. You're going to go to the first name on your list. You're going to meditate and you're going to sit with Anunnaki and be like, do I have Anunnaki connections? And I want you to just see what comes up, see what visions come up in your mind. And then you're going to actually, it's a long meditation, block out an hour. And then you're going to go to the next one. And then you're just going to see in your soul which kind of like twinkles for you. You know what I mean? As psychics, we kind of get those like little hints, what resonates with you. And that is literally, anyone can do it. It's a foolproof way to see what you connect to.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I tell people the live activations too, if they feel drawn to any specific one, then there's a reason for it. If you feel drawn to the Pleiadian or you had a profound experience during the Lyra one, there's a reason.
Totally.
So listen to your gut. Listen to your gut. Do you have anything else you would kind of like to share with everybody? Any other kind of
actually let me see if Raina has anything she wants to say. So Raina has a message where she would like to say, it is more important for everyone to be creating and shining light than to be trying to illuminate the dark. Some of us get caught up in what the dark is doing or saying, And she says, or what other people who do not see our perspective are doing or saying. And she says that it is of paramount importance that you focus solely on being and bringing the light rather than illuminating the dark, as that in itself can affect your vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I like that. Yeah, we want to focus forward.
Yeah.
On what we want to create. Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on. Let me say my spiel real quick. Thank you, everybody watching the replay or live. If you guys want to get 10% off CBD, you can do so with Lily10, link in the description. And also, don't forget to check out the Deep Inner Earth Chakra healing session that I just released. There's a link for that in the description. It's very, very powerful. We use the violet flame, clear you and clean you right up with K from Inner Earth. And guess that's about it. All right. Thank you so much for being on, Vanessa. It was wonderful speaking with you. Where can everybody find you?
For sure. So on YouTube, I'm Vanessa Crystal Consciousness. And then on TikTok, I am Crystal_Consciousness. And then I have links to my website from both of them if you want to book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just going to say, so you do the Star Origins readings too. So if there's anybody out there who wants to get a Star Origins reading, resonates with Vanessa, go check her out. She's very talented.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This was so lovely.
Thank you. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.